24 hours or so, the 2022 midterms will finally be over and done with. With one big election to go, the Georgia Senate runoff. And you know the stakes here, right? Because even though this race between Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock and Republican ex-football star Herschel Walker is not going to decide which party controls the Senate, a win for Warnock would give Democrats kind of a cushion, a buffer, now and into 2024. A ton of people have already voted. A record-setting number of people have already voted. Nearly 2 million went out and voted early. That's kind of a mind-blowing number when you think about the fact that Georgia shrunk the runoff period by like half this time around. So shorter runoff, more people coming out. And it's up to the candidates today. You can see where they are, trying to get folks that still have not voted to come out tomorrow. This map breaks down the turnout battle, right? You've got Senator Warnock really focusing on the area around Atlanta, especially those suburbs, right? Walker's taking his bus around the exurbs of that big city. And Walker's kind of got a turnout problem, right? These are the general election results here. You can see that he lagged behind Republican Governor Brian Kemp by about 5 points. If you look at independents, that gap you're about to see is going to get even bigger, right? That means independents are going to be critical here. And a big thing we're looking at, concerns about Walker's judgment. With our exit polls from the general election showing nearly 2/3 of voters think that Walker struggles with that. Why is that a big deal? In part because of questions surrounding his judgment, with multiple women saying he pressured them into having an abortion, even though his political stance is firmly anti-abortion, and allegations he's abused women, including what we're hearing in an exclusive interview with Cheryl Parsa, the first woman to go on the record with any allegation against Walker. She's telling our Vaughn Hilliard about the violence she experienced during their 5-year relationship, including one story that some viewers may find disturbing.
He had his hand on my throat and my chest. And then he leaned back to throw a punch. And luckily, I was able to avoid that. And the punch landed on the wall instead of me.
I want to bring in now Vaughn Hilliard, live for us in Atlanta, who had that interview. We'll talk about it more in a second, Vaughn, but let's just talk about the dynamics at play in this race. Because if you look at the data points, if you look at the limited polling, the spending, the early voting numbers so far, who has shown up to vote, it seems like Warnock is in a potentially stronger position than Walker. I was just on the phone with several people, even just this afternoon. And even like some smart Republican folks will sort of concede that point here. Maybe an uphill battle for Walker. However, if enough Republicans end up turning out on Election Day, he could end up in the Senate, right? I mean, that's how close this thing is.
And a big reason that these early voting numbers matter so much, Hallie, is because of what it looks like behind me here. We're expecting cold, frigid rain here in Georgia tomorrow yet again here. And when you're talking about lines in some places during early voting that we're sending from an hour to 2 hours, you're talking about big questions as to who ultimately turns out. And especially for Herschel Walker, he needs those hesitant conservatives and independents, those voters who went and voted for Republican Brian Kemp in the general election, but they did not vote for him. He needs those folks to turn out tomorrow. And when you see here the question of good judgment, this is another issue that is hampering Herschel Walker. It is more than this one allegation from Cheryl Parsa here, who is on the record and putting her name out there of her over the course of her 5-year relationship, accounting. You heard just that one episode of a physical assault here. But you have the likes of multiple women who have come forward alleging that Herschel Walker paid them to have abortions. There are also 3 kids of Herschel Walker's who he did not previously acknowledge to the public until this summer here. This is an uphill battle. And when you look at the spending numbers, Herschel Walker has been outspent by more than 2-to-1 margin compared to the Democratic aligned forces here in this race. And when you start to break down these early voting numbers, I think we got a graphic that kind of gives you a little bit better idea of what we're looking at here. The early vote turnout, we're talking about, number one, 76,000 voters who did not turn out in the general election, who did turn out here in the runoff, which is staggering. And I think we all got questions as to what led them to turn out for this runoff, but not the general. But when you look at the early voting numbers, you got 56% of them were women. In the general election, exit polling showed Raphael Warnock handily winning women voters here. And then when you look at here the breakdown of black voters and white voters here, you go back to 2020 in the runoff that took place 2 months after there that helped ascend the likes of Ossoff and Warnock. It was black voters that turned out in a greater share compared to the general election. So that is where Democrats are watching these numbers and ultimately who shows up tomorrow to really get a good understanding of where this race is headed.
I think that's a great breakdown of the state of play here when you have that tele-rally by former President Trump tonight. You've got everything that Raphael Warnock's doing. But let me ask you this, Vaughn, because you're in Georgia. Some of our viewers are in Georgia. A lot of our viewers are not in Georgia, but this still matters, right, to anybody who cares about representation in the Senate. Explain that, because there's a couple of pieces to this, which is why, even though this doesn't determine control of the Senate, Democrats would love to win this extra seat. Republicans would love to keep it at 50-50.
Right. We have watched Kamala Harris go to the Capitol to make a record number of tie-breaking votes for vice presidential, somebody serving in the vice presidency than ever before here over the course of these last 2 years. And so if you do have a +1 situation, number one, Kamala Harris would have to come out and be that tie-breaking vote fewer times. But also we'd probably be talking about Joe Manchin and the likes of Kyrsten Sinema less. But also when we're talking about judicial nominees and executive branch appointees that have to make their way through U.S. Senate confirmation, if in fact Raphael Warnock were to win, the committees would not be evenly split. You are talking about Democrats having a +1 member on each committee. So then not only when we're talking about legislation being passed through these committees, but also those judicial branch and executive branch nominees, if the Democrats vote in lockstep with one another, they do not need to convince a Republican in order to confirm those nominees, Hallie.
Vaughn Hill, you're live for us in Atlanta. I know it'll be a sleepless couple of nights for you, I am sure, Vaughn. Thank you for being with us. Let's take you to North Carolina now, where the FBI says it is investigating willful damage, they say. Willful damage to 2 power substations in Moore County. And in just the last hour or so, you had the state's governor saying that this attack, yes, this attack was on purpose, he says. Watch.
What happened here Saturday night was a criminal attack. Regardless of motive, violence and sabotage will not be tolerated.
So these plants are about halfway between Charlotte and Raleigh. And at the peak of the blackout, 100,000 people did not have power. You can see the map there. Right now, 32,000 people are without power. Still a lot. Schools had to close. Shelters are open. There's now a curfew tonight in just a few hours, 9 o'clock Eastern. And listen, it's not just the lights. It's cold, folks. The heat is an issue. Temperatures got below freezing this morning. If you're looking for a silver lining, I guess it's that it's going to get a bit milder tonight. But Antonia Hilton, who is live for us in North Carolina, Antonia, that is little solace to people who have been without power, who are now looking at these briefings from state officials going, wait a second, this was done on purpose. This is what the state is saying. And it's going to take a while to get the power back on.
That's right, Hallie. And for the record, it's still pretty chilly today, even if it's a bit warmer than it was last night. And so this is serious. I mean, I just spoke with a Duke Energy official moments ago, and it's looking like the vast majority of people here will not get their power back until Thursday. They were able to get a couple thousand people back last night, but the progress is going to take a couple more days now. And that's because these are really complicated and costly repairs. It's not a matter of just changing some light bulbs. They're bringing in entirely new equipment because the damage was that extensive. They have to bring in this new equipment, take out old equipment, and get the new stuff properly commissioned and ready to work. And so while Thursday might not sound that far away, it's a long time to go with potentially no school for your kids. You know, as you drive around this community here, traffic lights are off. It's hard to find an operating gas station, places to buy food. And so this attack has really plunged this community into crisis, Hallie.
Talk about the investigations here, because the question of motive is still out there. One thing that's interesting here has been officials essentially dismissing the idea, or I guess I shouldn't say dismissing, officials being careful to not comment on a potential motive, especially after some speculation. The sheriff waved off a question about a possible connection to an LGBTQ plus drag show in the area, saying that they really don't have anything to show for that issue. Like, I'm being careful talking about it, Antonia, because officials are being careful talking about it. Help us understand that piece of it.
Yeah, it's really important to be delicate as we talk about these things. But I think, you know, I can acknowledge there's a lot of hurt and worry in the LGBTQ community here. There was a drag show performance scheduled for Saturday night, and the power happened to go out right in the midst of that performance. And in the days leading up to Saturday, there were community members in, you know, an uproar over this drag show event, many of them right-wing protesters, activists who were, you know, making comments about the LGBTQ community that had many members, whether they were participating in the drag show or not, quite nervous about their safety, and people protested that night. But it is important to emphasize that right now, law enforcement officials have not been able to establish any connection there. And so it's not that they've dismissed that as a lead that they've followed, but it's just that there's no facts connecting these two events. They did happen simultaneously, but it's important to let this investigation kind of go where it leads. All they know right now is that this was intentional, that this was scary and dangerous, and that whoever did this very much knew what they were doing and wanted the consequences that we've seen sort of come out in this community in the attack that they did on these two substations. And so that's what's important to focus on here, that there is criminal intent and that they know that whoever did this knew what they were doing that night, Hallie.
They're looking for that person. They're looking to get the power back on. A lot of threads there in North Carolina. Glad you're there for us, Antonia Hilton. Thank you. Over on Capitol Hill, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, the top Republican in the Senate, is signaling he'll probably talk tomorrow about this challenge by President Biden. First reported by NBC News to denounce, to condemn former President Trump for these comments he's made that say that Mr. Trump wants to toss out parts of the Constitution because of his lies about fraud. You've got the White House, the spokesperson there, saying it shouldn't be a heavy lift to reaffirm the oath you've taken to the Constitution and calling on members of Congress to, in fact, repudiate what Mr. Trump has said. You've got to think the former president has seen some of this backlash because he is sort of kind of not really trying to clarify, quote unquote, clarify them, saying the media is lying about him wanting to terminate the Constitution. Keep in mind, those are his own words. He talked about termination of rules, including in the Constitution, that would allow him to basically be elected, redo the election, basically, saying only fools would accept stolen elections. Again, nothing about this election back in 2020 was stolen. Ryan Nobles is on Capitol Hill. So it is perhaps not surprising that you've got the president, although I shouldn't say that. You have the president now calling up members of Congress to denounce a former president. I guess that should be surprising, Ryan, and it kind of is that Democrats are now sort of saying, hey, Republicans raised the stakes on this. What it perhaps is not surprising is the politics of this. Democrats looking to try to splinter Republicans here. You have Mitch McConnell now suggesting to, I think, somebody on our team or one of the folks following him around the Hill that he'll speak tomorrow. Former Vice President Mike Pence is one of the few who's come out and condemned what Mr. Trump had to say. And we're also getting some new reaction from Republicans, even just in the last couple of minutes as they're all getting back from the weekend. Fill us in. Ryan?
Oh, are you talking to me? I wasn't sure if you were pitching to that soundbite. I'm sorry.
I might have just been rambling. I often do on this program, Ryan, but in this instance, for once, I was not.
Well, so to answer your question, Hallie, yes, we are getting reaction from Republicans up here on Capitol Hill to another controversy from Donald Trump. It seems to be our Monday rite of passage here, right? Where Donald Trump says or does something controversial, and then Republicans, the folks that are still in power, are forced to answer for it. And this time around, it's Trump's suggestion, first, that we should terminate parts of the Constitution, and then second, to overturn overturn a duly won election. But one of the people we caught up with today was Roy Blunt, from a senator from Missouri, and I believe we have some sound from him.
I think if you take an oath to the Constitution, you don't take it provisionally, and I can't imagine that a former president would make that statement.
And one thing they still refuse to do, though, Hallie, is say that this disqualifies him as the potential nominee for the Republican Party. Most Republican senators today just saying they want to see the process play out and that the voters will decide. Hallie? I
guess I was struck by one comment of somebody said, well, I can't imagine he would say that. But he did say it, right? Like, so this is what I wonder. I mean, you sort of tongue-in-cheek call it a Monday tradition. It kind of has, right? I mean, I think back to when you and your colleagues had to go around asking Republicans what they thought about the fact that, you know, noted now anti-Semite, Kanye West, had dined with former President Trump. Is this a pattern we're going to be seeing, you know, through the 2024 campaign? At what point, I guess this is the broad question that the GOP is reckoning with, but like at what point do they just fish or cut bait here?
Yeah, it's like Groundhog Day. There's no doubt about that, Hallie. And they keep saying they want the process to play itself out. It's going to be a long time before Republican voters are weighing in on the 2024 campaign. And Donald Trump does not seem to be changing his behavior. So this is going to be a big problem for Republican members of Congress as time goes on, unless they are willing to officially remove themselves from him as the leader of the party. All it would take is one Republican to say, I'd no longer endorse him, and we'd probably stop bothering them.
Ryan Nobles live for us on the Hill. Ryan, thank you. The conservative majority on the Supreme Court today seems willing to side with a website designer out in Colorado who says she shouldn't have to make wedding websites for same-sex couples because it goes against her religious beliefs. This is part of a huge case that is basically talking about free speech, religious freedoms. There were protests outside the Supreme Court today with LGBTQ plus rights here at the center of this all. Here's the deal. You've got Lori Smith. There she is. She's challenging a Colorado state law that says if you're going to go out there and have a business in public, right, if you're going to go out and offer a public service, you then cannot discriminate on who you offer that service to based on a person's sexual orientation. I spoke with the state's attorney general, who has sided against Smith here. He's on the other side of this fight. Here's what he told me.
You can say, I've got a specialized product, but you can't stop people from accessing the product. If you start discriminating based on religion, who can buy products and services, we're going to really undermine our civil rights protections.
This case follows another high-profile LGBTQ plus discrimination case the court took up in 2018. It may sound familiar to you, Colorado baker who refused to design a wedding cake for a same-sex couple. Now, back then, the justices sided with the baker, not on the main issue, right, of like whether you can refuse service to a same-sex couple, et cetera, but because of a technicality in a lower court ruling. And so now this court, which is now firmly conservative, is going to get its shot to rule on this all. Joining us now is Yamiche Alcindor, who's been covering all of this. And Yamiche, I was struck by some of the arguments here, right? Because on the one hand, you have what the Colorado Attorney General was telling me, what was argued in court here, which is kind of a slippery slope. You heard some of the more liberal justices saying this. Sonia Sotomayor, Elena Kagan saying like, hey, if we stop here, what's to prevent, you know, you had a great example, a restaurateur, a chef who's making pasta from saying, well, this is my artistic expression and I don't want to serve it to same-sex couples, right? On the flip side of this, you have some conservative justices, and including one who brought up J-Date and Ashley Madison, right, to kind of make the point that businesses can offer things to certain segments of the population. Talk us through it.
Well, it's interesting because the argument that Lori Smith's attorneys are making is really in free speech. They're saying that photographers win Pulitzer Prizes because it's their expression, it's not the subject. So they're saying as a web designer, she shouldn't have to design a website that she feels is against her conviction. So they're really trying to say, this isn't really a business, this is her artistic expression, which is why they're trying to say, well, this is different from a restaurant. This is different from, at one point, there was a justice who was asking, well, how is that different from restaurants who said back in the 1950s, I'll serve black people, but only at the takeout window. They can't sit down, because Lori Smith is also saying, I have LGBTQ customers. I just don't want to make their websites for their weddings. So
she does other things for those customers, other kinds of sites, but same-sex marriage specifically is what she says violates her religious beliefs.
Certainly. So that's the argument, that it is about her religious beliefs, but also about her free speech. Not so much a service and business argument as much as an argument about sort of her own expression.
Well, let me play that soundbite from Justice Sonia Sotomayor that I think we have here. Let's listen.
If you don't believe they should be telling their story and what they're asking you to do is tell their story, then you don't have to do that.
So it doesn't really, there is no line on race, there is no line on disability, ethnicity, none of the protected categories. That's in a public accommodation law.
There is a line. The line is that no one on any side of any debate has to be compelled to express a message that violates their core convictions.
What's so interesting to me about why this is back in front of the court to begin with is they kind of left this open at that after that bake shop decision, where they issued that very narrow ruling that didn't address this broader concern that we're now seeing brought up again here.
And I've been talking to some court watchers and really reading about this case, wondering if the 2018 case had been decided on sort of broader grounds, would we even be here? And the answer is possibly, because because we have a different court. If in 2018, maybe the court had said, actually, no, as a business, you can't discriminate, you might have someone say, well, now that we have a 6-3 majority, conservative majority, we're going to come back and bring this. It could also have just been brought and say, we want to expand this idea to bring it to other businesses. So it's very interesting that we found ourselves at this position. I will say it was also interesting to listen to these oral arguments, which I really feel like were in layman's terms, and as someone who hasn't covered the court that much, you could understand things, because people were saying things like Justice Jackson saying, well, what about if a photographer says, I don't want to put black families with a picture with Santa because I want to look at Christmas from the 1950s, Or what if a Christmas store says, well, I want to serve only Christians and I want to put up a sign that says Jews not allowed? These are sort of really real life sort of hypothetical arguments and questions that the justices were asking. And you sort of felt that the liberal justices in particular were really trying to push the lawyers here. But again, it's a 6-3 conservative majority. This is the kind of case, I think, that they are really kind of waiting for. And people who are sort of supporters of Lori Smith really feel like she's going to be confident. I talked to her legal team as they were walking out of the court, and they feel confident.
I'm talking with one of her lawyers tomorrow after that interview today. This feels like one of those sort of blockbuster decisions that we'll get way later in the term.
Certainly.
Who knows? But like this feels like June-ish, you know?
Yeah.
Who knows? Yumi Shelsendor, thank you so much. It's good to see you. The Pentagon and the White House might be about to get into a fight with Congress over the COVID vaccine mandate for the military. That's because the White House this afternoon says the Pentagon wants to keep it, right? Pointing out that the military already has a bunch of mandates for vaccines in place. Like people who want to join the military have to get certain shots beyond just the COVID shot. So this is nothing new. But you've got lawmakers, as we've learned today over on Capitol Hill, who say, no, this is making it harder to recruit people into the military. We want to take language out of sort of the current situation that would allow members of the military to not be vaccinated. Monica Alba is joining us now. Monica, here's the bottom line on this, right? It was a fairly controversial decision back in 2021 when the military moved to mandate the COVID shot for people who serve. It is now controversial that lawmakers are leaning on the administration to pull that requirement. Walk us through the expectation, the timing, because this could all come to a head sometime this week.
Absolutely, Hallie. There was a lot of debate when that decision was being considered and a lot of hurdles that needed to be clear before ultimately President Biden said, yes, I would like to see this happen, and Secretary Austin put that in place. And now the two men have discussed this over the weekend and said we would like to keep this mandate in place. But here's the rub. Currently, congressional leadership in discussions between Democrats and Republicans, we're told, have attached it and potentially included it in this must-pass defense spending bill, which would essentially repeal the mandate. And that is because, according to Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, that in this conversation he had with the president just last week, when he had the Big Four here at the White House, he claims, McCarthy does, that the president actually said he was open to taking it away. So after he said that, then the White House had to come out and say, wait, this isn't totally done and dusted yet. The ongoing negotiations will continue. The president is going to be a part of that, as well as his legislative team. But ultimately, I asked the press secretary just a short time ago about this in the briefing here today, and she said, of course, we would like to see this kept in place, but there is no guarantee because, again, at the end of the day, they need to get this spending bill done. They need to do government funding, and they just realize this may be one of the priorities they might have to compromise on when it comes to getting this all done. But publicly, they want to continue to be clear that they think vaccines are incredibly important, that they're life-saving, that they want to make sure that people don't fall down on that as we kind of head into this potential winter surge. So none of it is done, but you can believe that the White House would like to see it happen. But at the end of the day, there may be something even more pressing, which is to get this all done and wrapped up before the end of the year so that we don't go into a government shutdown, Hallie.
Monica Alba live for us there on the North Lawn of the White House. Mon, thank you. California Governor Gavin Newsom today is making moves to try to punish big oil for high gas prices. He's calling state lawmakers into a special session to approve basically a penalty for oil companies when they make a certain amount of money, when their profits hit a certain point. And it's possible that this proposal could help Californians with gas prices because, as you probably know, they saw gas prices hit more than $6 a gallon this summer. On the national level, we've been talking about how prices have been going down lately. Right now, the national average right there, $3.40. That may change, though, because the Biden administration, like Governor Newsom, has its eye on big oil companies. The president's talked a lot about this, given how much money ExxonMobil, Shell, et cetera, have been making against the backdrop of the war on Ukraine, oil sanctions on Russia. The president has threatened companies with more taxes if they don't lower gas prices. And then in the face of all this, you know what ExxonMobil did today? Announcing it'll raise salaries for its executives just a month after posting record profits. Brian Chung is joining us now. You know, like setting aside, Brian, that most of these oil executives get most of their money through like bonuses and stock options and everything else and not base pay, right? Give us a sense of the timing here, what this means, only because the juxtaposition of that, right, in light of people's concerns over gas prices is, I think, an interesting one.
Yeah, well, the CEO getting paid $1.9 million. That's a jump from $1.7 million. And by the way, that outpaces inflation. That's a 10% raise. But we also have to acknowledge here that this is because of the fact that the oil companies have done so well over the last year, thanks in part, actually thanks entirely, due to the rise in prices that we saw earlier in the summer. Now, we saw ExxonMobil, for example, make about $19.7 billion in just the last quarter alone. Those are Apple numbers that you don't usually tend to see from these companies. But it's not just ExxonMobil, it's all the other oil companies as well. Occidental Petroleum saw their profits triple. Chevron about doubled their profits off of oil as well. And that's a big reason why the stocks of all of these companies have been to the moon in a year where every other stock is, for the most part, down. Exxon shares up 75% on the year, and Chevron shares up 50%, a big reason why they want to now pay that out to the CEOs as well.
Is it realistic to think then that consumers, if there are penalties on these companies that make a ton of money, right, from either the California governor, from, let's say, the president saying we're going to put in place higher taxes, is it realistic to think that that stuff is going to trickle down to like you or me or anybody else who's going down the street to fill up their gas tank?
Well, in theory, that's what these politicians are hoping for. But what's becoming very much in view is the difficulty in getting something like that passed. We've seen what's going on in California. But what's interesting is that President Biden seemed to suggest that he was interested in something similar earlier in the year when gas prices were spiking up to about $5 a gallon nationally. That's something that was very hard for the administration to do, force these oil drillers to essentially open up more rigs domestically. That's a big thing that made this particular oil crisis so much more different than the 1970s, is that we are a larger domestic driller. But what we saw the Biden administration have trouble doing was politically messaging the intention to do something like that, which likely would have had to come in the form of a law. So he was basically just saying, hey, oil and gas companies, it'd be great if you could do more drilling. They said, that's very expensive for us to do, to turn these rigs on. We're just going to not do that and hope that we can ride out these price increases. And ultimately, that impulse is no longer there with prices back down now. So very interesting to see. But again, the cash is definitely in the coffers of these companies. So they're very happy about that.
Brian Chung, thank you very much. Appreciate it. The White House today responding to some exclusive new reporting from our team here at NBC News about hackers linked to the Chinese government stealing at least $20 million in COVID benefits. This is according to Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, saying a little bit before we went on the air that the president has continually embraced and called for strong oversight and enforcement against potential fraud. This is the first pandemic fraud tied to foreign state-sponsored cyber criminals that the U.S. government has acknowledged publicly. But experts say it could only be the beginning. And remember, like we have to say it, this is your money. Man, this is your, do you pay taxes? I bet you do. This is your money we're talking about. It's supposed to be used on stuff like small business loans, on unemployment benefits, but instead these Chinese hackers got it. The Secret Service says the group behind this is highly adept at these espionage missions and financial crimes. Ken Delanian is one of the reporters behind this story. I'm glad to have you with us, Ken. So national security implications are real here. Walk us through it.
This is really the convergence of two horrible stories, Hallie. One is the massive fraud in pandemic relief programs, and another is the threat from Chinese hacking. So hundreds of billions of dollars in pandemic relief went to fraudsters, including a lot of foreign criminal groups. But in this case, what's so alarming about this is a Chinese hacking group that's linked to the Chinese intelligence services.
Like the A-team. Right.
And so the idea that they are rooting around in now, our sources tell us that they don't believe the Chinese government ordered this hack. They allow these hackers to freelance and make money. But these are some really prolific hackers. The idea that they're rooting around in U.S. government systems stealing money is really alarming.
I'm just so struck, and to remind people here, law enforcement officials, counterintelligence officials have testified in front of Congress that by now, every adult American, if you are watching this and you're over the age, you've almost certainly had your stuff stolen by China. All or most of your personal data taken by China. That's a big deal. What are they doing with it?
They are building massive databases that allow them to identify American intelligence operatives abroad, to understand things about our systems that allow them to steal, intellectual property. This is the FBI director, Chris Wray, has been hammering on this, that the threat from China to national security and economic security is enormous.
Super quickly, you said this is the first time that we can link pandemic fraud to a foreign state-sponsored sort of cyber criminal. Are there others? Could there be more to come?
Absolutely. Experts fear that there are others. And the larger story here is the pandemic relief programs were rife with fraud, and Congress has done very little to establish accountability about that. Hundreds of billions of dollars that could have gone to roads, schools, veterans benefits, food stamps, gone.
Ken Delanian, thank you for that reporting. It's good to see you. Appreciate it. Coming up, Iran is claiming its notorious morality police now a thing of the past. But officials here at home aren't really buying it. We'll tell you why not next. Plus, Kyrie Irving, no longer a Nike athlete. More on why the company is officially cutting ties with him in a sec. Today, the U.S. staying pretty skeptical about this claim from Iran that they're getting rid of their morality police. That's after an Iranian government official and the country's AG said they'd be shutting down the part of the police that enforces conservative dressing. So the U.S. State Department here is like, well, wait a second. This is vague. This is ambiguous. Protesters in Iran seeming really skeptical, too. They're kicking off a 3-day strike today because this announcement from the AG that the morality police no longer exists isn't really considered official. In order for that to happen, this announcement would have to come from higher ups, top law enforcement or religious leaders. You'd be thinking, okay, well, why are we talking about the morality police at all? Came to the world's attention during protests, like you see here, after the death of Mahsa Amini, the 22-year-old who died in police custody for allegedly breaking the country's dress code laws. Hallie is joining us now. And Hallie, there's been back and forth over this, right? Months and months of protests in Iran. Now somebody in the government is like, okay, we're getting rid of the morality police. They're abolished. That was the word. But we have to talk about the big grains of salt here, right? Because that's number one. We don't even know if that's the case for real. And number two, that's not an immediate problem solver for all of this either.
Exactly right on both points, Hallie. Firstly, there's a lot of confusion about what they're doing. Just in the last hour or two, another senior cleric came and said, look, the morality police is gone, but they may come back in a different form. So it's still very opaque what's going on. The other form may be that their physical presence will come off the streets, but then they'll try and control women through surveillance cameras, facial recognition. If they're not wearing their headscarf in public, they'll be fined, or they can't go to the bank, or they can't register for some sort of social service. But the situation on the ground has gone beyond that, Hallie. Even if the government did come and say, listen, we're not going to enforce the hijab anymore, for many of the protesters, it's too little, too late. And the only reason they're talking about this right now is because of the critical mass of women that came out and said, enough is enough. We're not going to wear this headscarf anymore. You know, you're basically going to have to kill us all if you want to enforce it. So it's become unenforceable. You walk around Tehran, 60% of the women are not wearing headscarves. In the airport, they don't wear headscarves, where it was all ruthlessly enforced. So this is the government now scrambling to see what they can do to try and calm the situation down, but it's not really calming anyone down in Iran. As you mentioned, leading up to this announcement, people have been asking for 3 days of strikes and protests. That has happened. The country is essentially ground to a halt, and the regime is scrambling, wondering how or if they can get out of this situation.
Russi live for us there on that story. Hallie, thank you very much for staying on top of it. It is significant. We'll continue to cover it. Let's get you over to the 5 things our team thinks you should know about tonight. Number 1, the Tampa police chief resigned today. That's after body cam footage showed the former chief, Mary O'Connor, flashing her badge to a deputy and asking to be let go after being stopped in a golf cart back in early November. O'Connor offered to pay any fine. She apologized to the deputy. Number 2, you got a little bit more time to get your real ID. You're looking at it here. The new deadline is May of 2025. DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, says COVID's made it harder to get the ID. Do you know what this is? You have to have it, right? This was passed back in 2005 in the wake of 9/11. It was supposed to go into effect in 2008. It basically strengthens security on, like, your ID. It's been repeatedly delayed since then. Number 3, remember Michael Avenatti? He's now been sentenced to 14 years in prison for a fraud scheme in California. He's been ordered to pay $7 million in restitution after admitting he pocketed millions that belonged to clients and then lied to them about it. Avenatti became famous for representing porn star Stormy Daniels, who sued then-President Donald Trump. Avenatti's already serving time in prison for stealing book proceeds from Daniels and also for trying to extort Nike. Number 4, speaking of Nike, it has officially now cut ties with Brooklyn Nets star Kyrie Irving. That's about a month after Nike suspended its contract with him after Irving tweeted a link to an anti-Semitic movie. And then after that, refused to say he was against anti-Semitism. He did issue an apology after he was suspended by the Nets. Number 5, ABC's GMA3 co-anchors TJ Holmes and Amy Robach are temporarily off the air after news of their romantic relationship surfaced last week. Apparently, the president of ABC News has called their relationship a distraction. The announcement comes days after the ABC co-hosts were spotted holding hands in a car and going on dates in pictures published by the Daily Mail. Still ahead. After an eruption of Mauna Loa, this active active volcano is now becoming a tourist site, right? So how does that work as this thing is having its lava flow get closer and closer to civilization? We're going to take you there live in just a minute. This big highway in Hawaii is in danger of being shut down, and check out why. This is a live picture of the lava coming out of the Mauna Loa volcano. And the highway is right in its path. God, that's like incredible to look at, but it is dangerous, obviously, and could be a huge pain for commuters who want to get from the east side to the west side of the island if this lava takes over the highway. This whole thing, like unsurprisingly, kind of becoming a tourist attraction. That may be a little dangerous. Officials are telling people stay on the road if you want to check it out. Let's bring in our correspondent, Steve Patterson. Steve, do we really have to tell people don't go walking through an active lava site? Like, are we really, this is what we do now?
I mean, you know, people are curious, people wander, people get a little too close, and I think what officials are trying to say over and over again is what you said, that this is dangerous. This is lava that is so hot. It is creating new Earth. You do not want to be anywhere near this. Plus, not only that, not only is it dangerous to yourself, we were talking bodily, but it further adds more complications to an already really complicated situation, right? Because now they have to allocate resources to keeping you away. So that may further create a situation in which they're trying to keep this road open, right? As that lava gets closer to that road, it makes it more complicated. They may have to shut it down earlier than expected. And that road, let me tell you, Hallie, it's a big impact. I mean, you're talking about one of the most major thoroughfares on the entirety of Big Island. It connects the east side of the island from the west side of the island. It connects Kona to Hilo, two of the biggest cities on the island. Not only, you know, is that a big deal for commuters, it's also a really big deal for a lot of the city systems, a lot of the transportation department. They have to get resources to those cities. So all of that makes a difference. So does people trying to stay put and not getting too close to that, overcomplicating their job. For commuters, though, it's also a pain. I spoke to the mayor about this. Here's what he, well, he told me basically, I mean, if the lava gets close enough.
Can I just preface with people? You know Hawaii well. I am deeply jealous of you for that. But like, if you don't, it's not like there's 100 highways on this island, right? Like, it's not like there's a billion ways to get around. There's like one big main road. That's it.
Yeah, I met my wife in Hawaii. She's there now. She's not on Big Island. And Big Island is much different from a lot of the other islands, especially Oahu. Oahu's densely populated. Big Island's sparsely populated, but it's huge, right? There's about 200,000 people on the island in its entirety. So that road is vital. It's essentially like, oh, I don't want to misequate things, right? It's not like the 405 shuts down in Los Angeles, but it is that big to the people there because it is such a vital artery. If that shuts down, you're talking about side streets that would add hours and hours on top of a commute. Not only that, but you're talking about, again, this lava creating new Earth. It's not like after this ends, they can just take a few shovels and get rid of the leftover lava. You're talking about an entire transportation project that needs to happen to clear that. So all of this is major. I spoke to the mayor about it. Here's just what he told me about the commute. Listen to this.
People would have to take the coastal routes. It would add a little bit more time to their trips, but something that was done for many, many years, but it would slow things down quite a bit.
And again, he says, like, the major pain is not worrying about this very, very slow trickle of lava. And it is very slow. We're talking 50 feet an hour. That is super slow. It is more about the people that are gandering and looking up and gawking and getting in the way and slowing down traffic as it is right now, Hallie.
Steve Patterson, yes, you could you outrace the lava on foot? You could, right?
You could outrace the lava on foot, yes.
Steve Patterson, thank you. Appreciate it. NBC News covers hundreds of stories every day, and because you couldn't possibly read or watch or listen to them all, our bureau teams have done it for you. This is what they tell us is going down in their regions in a segment we call The Local. From our Northeast Bureau, the infamous Long Island serial killer known as the Torso Killer, admitting to 5 more murders. Richard Cottingham today pleading guilty to the 1968 murder of 23-year-old Diane Cusick at a mall in Nassau County. He also confessed in court to 4 more murders. He's already serving life in prison for the nearly dozen killings of young women in the 60s and 70s. Out of our West Coast Bureau, a portion of California's Highway 1 is still closed today because of a rock slide. The state DOT says a lot of wind, storm damage created problems along this world-famous scenic highway near Big Sur. It is gorgeous. It is obviously prone to this kind of thing that you see on your screen. No word yet on when the highway is going to reopen. And from our Southeast Bureau, a Florida zoo is asking the public for help after two of its rare Galapagos tortoises were stolen last week. The two were last seen on Wednesday, according to a spokesperson for the St. Augustine Crocodile Farm. This type of endangered species can grow to be 700 pounds and live for more than 100 years. The stolen tortoises here were youngsters, just 5 years old. Coming up, the 11-year-old nephew of a Texas woman killed by a police officer in her own home took the stand today. Why prosecutors say the shooting was, in their words, absolutely intentional. To tonight's original now, with in-depth reporting on a topic we've been watching. The prosecution in a Texas courtroom today saying the shooting of Tatiana Jefferson back in 2019 at the hands of a then police officer was absolutely intentional and an unjustifiable act that should have never happened. Erin Dean is on trial for shooting Jefferson through a window of her own home. Dean has pleaded not guilty to the murder charge. His lawyers say this case is about fact, not emotion. Zincle Esamoah has more.
How did she pull the gun out of her purse?
She looked in her purse, and then when she looked at it, she got it and just had it next to her.
Today, the long-awaited murder trial begins for Erin Dean, the white former police officer who fatally shot and killed a black woman, Tatiana Jefferson, in her family's Texas home. The incident started as a non-emergency call to police. The front door of Jefferson's home was open, according to police. Body camera video showing the officer, Erin Dean, approaching the front door of the home on October 12, 2019, then walking around the side of the home. In the body cam video, Dean shouts at Jefferson to show her hands moments before fatally shooting the 28-year-old through the rear window of the home with a single bullet.
Put your hands up, show me your hands.
Dean is not heard identifying himself as police. Police say Jefferson was playing video games with her then 8-year-old nephew, who, according to police record, said his aunt pulled out a gun after hearing noises behind the house. It is unclear, based on police records, if Dean knew Jefferson was armed. The shooting sparked widespread outrage and a speedy response from the Fort Worth, Texas Police Department. They promptly released the body cam video. Dean quit and was charged with murder and non-negligent manslaughter just 2 days after the shooting. He pled not guilty and went free on $200,000 bond.
How usual or unusual is it for a police department to respond to a fatal police shooting like this?
Most of the time, police departments will take their time investigating before they take disciplinary action.
But that pace slowed. In contrast, George Floyd, the black man killed by a white officer in 2020, was killed 7 months after Jefferson. And that former officer, Derek Chauvin, went on trial and was convicted over a year and a half ago. Dean's trial is just starting.
It took 3 years for this trial to begin. What do you think factored into the delays?
We shouldn't be that surprised that the trial took this long to happen because we're still in the tail end of COVID. And while the pandemic may be over, the courthouse backups are not over.
Reportedly, trial delays were due to the pandemic, appeals, and recurring illness from Dean's team, according to the Associated Press. Dean's attorney died the same week as jury selection. Dean's team did not immediately respond for comment. The family of Tatiana Jefferson says, in part, they are relieved that it's going forward, but they are extremely anxious during this process.
In a case like this, ultimately, it's going to be what a reasonable officer would have done in the same position and what information was known to that officer in that moment.
Zincle is joining us now. Zincle, we heard there from Jefferson's now 11-year-old nephew who talked about the moments leading up to her getting shot. He was specifically asked about his aunt's gun, which has been controversial here, yeah?
Yeah, Hallie, that's right. And his testimony was really moving today, right? A bit sobering even to see someone so small in that seat. And he was asked about the gun, which has been controversial because critics felt it was centering Tatiana Jefferson's gun and an attempt to blame her for the incident when they say she's the victim in this case, attempting to exercise her right to bear arms on her own private property. Now, law enforcement say they were bringing up the gun because they needed to be thorough and needed to give the judge all of the information. We also heard that 11-year-old who you see on your screen talk about the moments after she was shot, saying it felt like a dream and that she was shaking and crying. Hallie.
The makeup of the jury in cases like these sometimes gets some scrutiny here. What's the case here?
Yeah, and it's no different in this case, especially because this is yet another case about a white police officer fatally shooting a black person. And so the makeup of the jury is always subject to a lot of attention. We saw Dean's team appeal the location of this case. Those appeals were largely overturned. And the AP reports the makeup of this jury. It is a 12-person jury, and there are 8 men, 6 women, and none appear to be black. Hallie.
Gonna have more for you here tomorrow. Same time, same place. More coverage picks up right now. Bye.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.